There's something powerful about silence, not just the absence of sound, but the quiet that makes space for something greater. In the rush of our lives, we often crave answers, direction, reassurance, peace, but we search for it in noise. We look to the headlines, the voices around us, the chaos inside our minds, hoping to hear something that settles us. Yet the presence we're truly seeking doesn't shout over the noise. It whispers beneath it, and if we want to feel it, we have to learn to listen differently. That's why the first and most important step is this: silence the noise, seek the whisper. It sounds simple, almost too easy. But it isn't. Silence is hard to come by in a world that worships distraction. Every moment is filled with something: scrolling, notifications, music, podcasts, voices, opinions, tasks, to-do lists that never end. We live in a constant hum. And here's the thing: when your soul is surrounded by noise, you become numb to presence. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means you can't feel what's still and subtle in the middle of so much loud. If you've ever tried to tune into a soft song on a static-filled radio station, you know how it feels. You strain to hear, you know it's there, but you can't fully receive it until you adjust the frequency. And that's what silence does. It's not about just removing sound. It's about adjusting your spiritual frequency to tune into what's already there, waiting to be felt. Creating silence doesn't always mean sitting in a room with no sound. It means becoming intentional with your inner world. It might be 5 minutes in the morning before the day begins, where you close your eyes and just breathe. No requests, no words, just a posture of stillness. It could be turning off the background noise during your commute and simply observing what rises up in your heart. You'll notice in those moments that clarity starts to come, peace starts to settle. You might not hear a voice, but you'll feel something. That gentle pull, that quiet knowing, that sense of being surrounded when no one else is around. The world will tell you that productivity is king, that doing more means you're worth more, that filling every moment means you're moving forward. But what if the most powerful progress you make is in the pause? What if the greatest presence you could carry with you into the chaos of life is born in the quiet spaces where nobody's watching? You don't have to retreat to a mountain or a monastery. You just have to make room. That's the key. Make room. Because this presence doesn't force its way in. It comes where it's welcomed. It comes where it's made space for. And space isn't always measured in time. It's measured in attention. You can spend an hour in silence and never really listen, or you can pause for 60 seconds and be completely open. And in that openness, you begin to feel it, not as a concept, not as theology, but as something real, tangible, near. It's in the silence that you remember you're not alone. It's in the stillness that you realize you've been carried all along. You start to notice the little things, the way your heart steadies, the way your fears shrink, the way direction starts to form where there was once only confusion. That whisper doesn't speak to your ears, it speaks to your spirit. It brings clarity that no noise can give, peace that no productivity can manufacture, strength that doesn't come from striving but from surrender. And if you practice this, if you learn to quiet the storm around you, and especially the one within you, you'll find something remarkable. That presence isn't limited to the silent moments. It begins to follow you. It lingers. You feel it in conversations. You sense it in decisions. You carry it into chaos because you've found it in stillness. So start there. Make room, silence the noise, and you will feel the whisper that's been there all along. You know, for so many people, connection feels like something that only happens in moments of prayer, moments of worship, moments of desperation. And while those moments matter, they're not the full picture. Presence wasn't meant to be visited, it was meant to be lived in. And that's the difference between occasional devotion and constant awareness. If you want to feel that deep, unshakable presence in your daily life, it begins with a shift, not in schedule, but in mindset. This isn't about adding more to your to-do list, it's about seeing everything through a different lens. It's realizing that this presence doesn't clock in and out like a shift worker. It's not something you encounter once and then wait for again next Sunday. It's not limited to your quiet time or confined to a corner of your room. It's here, now, always. The question is, are you aware of it? When you begin to walk in that awareness, something starts to change inside you. You no longer separate your spiritual life from your real life. You start to understand that they're one and the same. Washing dishes, that's a moment for presence. Driving to work, there's space for connection there. Answering emails, folding laundry, standing in a grocery line. These aren't interruptions to your spiritual walk. They are asterisk your spiritual walk, but we've been conditioned to think that only the sacred moments count, the prayer times, the worship music, the scriptures. And those are beautiful, they're anchors. But the truth is, presence isn't restricted to spiritual rituals. It reveals itself in awareness when your heart is turned towards something greater in the middle of the ordinary. When you develop that inner attentiveness, you begin to hear that still, steady voice in places you never expected. You start to sense guidance in moments that used to feel mundane. You become aware of how deeply you're being led, not just when you're kneeling in prayer, but when you're answering a phone call or sitting in traffic. It's in those very moments when your mind wants to wander or worry that you get to turn your attention inward and say, I know you're here. That quiet acknowledgement doesn't have to be loud or poetic. Sometimes it's just a whisper in your soul. A pause, a breath, a reminder that you're not doing this day alone. See, awareness isn't about trying harder. It's about noticing more. It's choosing to believe that nothing is outside of this presence. And when you believe that, even your smallest moments become filled with meaning. You begin to walk through life with a kind of quiet reverence. You become slower to speak, quicker to listen. Your reactions soften, your decisions deepen, and it's not because you're trying to be holy. It's because you're aware that you're never without guidance. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. It's like tuning a frequency. At first, you have to be intentional. You have to remind yourself, look for it, listen for it, but with time, that channel becomes clearer. You don't have to search for presence. It begins to find you in every place you're willing to notice it. Even in pain, especially in pain, that's when this awareness becomes your anchor. When things fall apart, when you're uncertain, when your weary awareness keeps you from feeling abandoned. It reminds you that even here, even now, presence surrounds you. You're not reaching out into the dark, hoping for a response. You're resting in something constant. You may not always feel it in the same way, but it's always there, closer than breath. And that's the gift of awareness. It transforms your life from the inside out. It doesn't mean you'll never feel distant again. But even in the distance, you'll know what's true. You'll remember what's real, and you'll return, not to a place, not to a feeling, but to the awareness that you were never alone in the first place. So today, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, pause, just for a moment, acknowledge, notice, and let that quiet awareness become the atmosphere you live in. We live in a time where feelings often drive everything. If it feels good, we follow it. If it feels right, we act on it. If we don't feel it, we doubt it. And while emotions are a part of the human experience, valid, powerful, even beautiful, they were never meant to be our compass. They are not steady enough. They shift with mood, with circumstances, with exhaustion, with pressure. And when it comes to walking in divine presence, waiting to feel something before you act can keep you stuck, confused, and disconnected. The truth is, this presence doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to alignment. It doesn't show up because you feel spiritual or worthy or inspired. It flows when your life lines up with the source. That's why obedience matters, not the rigid kind that's about rules and fear, but the kind that's rooted in trust. The kind that says, I will do what I'm led to do, even if I don't feel anything yet, because feelings are a response. But obedience is a decision, and the presence you're looking for is most often found on the other side of that decision. So many people wait for the presence to fall before they move, but often it's in the moving that it comes. It's in the forgiving when you don't feel like forgiving. It's in the choosing peace when your emotions scream chaos. It's in the act of loving when you'd rather protect yourself. Every time you align your action with what's right, rather than what's easy, you open a space for presence to settle. And that space is where transformation happens. Not just in the moment you feel something powerful, but in the quiet, ordinary steps of obedience no one sees. When you wake up and choose stillness over scrolling, when you speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, when you choose integrity in a culture of shortcuts, those aren't small choices. They are the doorway to deeper connection. They show that you're not just seeking a moment, you're building a life that can carry this presence daily. Obedience also brings clarity. It clears the fog. It cuts through confusion. When you act in alignment, even without emotional confirmation, your spirit begins to settle into something deeper than fleeting highs. It's like walking through a dark hallway toward a light you can't quite see yet, but you keep moving because you know it's there. That kind of obedience becomes a declaration. I trust what I can't see yet. I'm moving toward what I believe, not what I feel. And here's the powerful part. Obedience doesn't always feel like fire. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it feels like routine. But over time, that routine becomes rhythm. That rhythm becomes intimacy. And that intimacy becomes a lifestyle where the presence isn't something you're chasing. It's something you're walking in. The moment you shift from chasing feelings to choosing alignment, everything changes. You stop second guessing every dry season. You stop wondering if presence has left you just because the emotions aren't loud. And instead, you grow roots. Deep, steady, unshakable roots, because now you're not led by emotion, you're anchored by obedience. And it's in those anchored places where your soul is steady even when the winds blow, that you begin to experience presence in the most powerful way. Not in the noise, not in the fireworks, but in the calm certainty that you're exactly where you're meant to be. It won't always be easy. Alignment requires sacrifice. It asks you to let go of control, to surrender your timing, to say yes when you're tempted to say later. But what you gain in return is priceless. A nearness that doesn't fade, a peace that doesn't crack, and a sense of direction that emotion alone can't give you. So don't wait for the feeling. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Choose alignment. Walk in obedience. Do what you're led to do even when it's quiet, because presence follows obedience, and when it does, you'll know you didn't just visit something holy. You became a dwelling place for it. We often imagine sacred moments as something reserved for churches, temples, retreats, places that feel separate from the rest of life. We treat the divine like a guest who visits on special occasions, who shows up when the setting is just right. But what if I told you that your life is meant to be the setting, that the most powerful presence isn't found in a distant place, but in the space you make right where you are. To feel that presence daily, you must begin to create sacred spaces in your everyday routine, not by adding pressure or rituals, but by inviting meaning into what already exists. Presence doesn't require perfection, it requires intentionality. It flows freely, but it settles where it's welcomed. And that welcome begins with making space, not once, but again and again, in the rhythm of your life. Think about your day. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes, how much of it is lived on autopilot? We move from one task to the next, often without pausing, often without noticing, but within that routine is an invitation. Every ordinary moment holds the potential to become sacred, not because the moment changes, but because your awareness does. You begin to infuse purpose into what felt mindless before. It can be as simple as turning your morning routine into a moment of presence. Before the coffee, before the noise, you pause, you breathe, you acknowledge that small shift. Just 2 minutes of attention can change the entire atmosphere of your day. Suddenly, you're not just rushing into life. You're inviting something greater to lead you into it. And that invitation doesn't stop in the morning. Throughout your day, there are places you can turn into sacred space, not by removing yourself from life, but by being fully present within it. Washing dishes, turn it into gratitude. Folding clothes, turn it into reflection. Waiting at a red light, turn it into a breath of awareness. These aren't moments to escape. They are moments to engage, because this presence doesn't need candles or silence or a mountaintop view. It just needs room, and you can create that room anywhere. Your home can become more than shelter. It can become sanctuary. Your conversations can become more than casual. They can become vessels of grace. Even your rest can be sacred when you stop seeing it as a break from life and start seeing it as an act of trust. That kind of shift doesn't just change your environment. It changes you. You begin to carry a stillness within you. You begin to walk into chaos without becoming part of it. You become a space where presence lives, not visits. This isn't about being hyper-spiritual. It's not about overthinking every second of your life. It's about choosing to see what you once overlooked. It's about turning your schedule into a rhythm, your habits into alignment, your actions into invitation. And slowly, your daily life becomes saturated with something greater. You don't just live, you live aware. You don't just move, you move in step. And you don't just react to life. You respond with grace because something deeper is guiding you from within. And here's what happens when you create those sacred spaces consistently. Presence begins to mark your life. It doesn't come and go with your emotions or circumstances. It begins to rest in you. You carry it to work. You carry it into relationships. You carry it into conflict. You carry it when life feels heavy and when life feels light. And it's not because your life is perfect, it's because you've made room for what truly matters. So look at your routine, not to change everything overnight, but to start where you are. Light a candle when you pray, open a window and just breathe. Put your phone down during meals, pause between tasks. Begin to treat ordinary moments as holy ground. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are real. And in what's real, presence meets you. Because in the end, sacred space isn't found, it's created. And when you start building it, even in the smallest ways, you realize it was never about escaping life to find presence. It was about opening your life to become presence-filled.